I saw him working on this, and Jack and I have been close for many, many years. And, I was always like, Jack, you should raise money. Like, you have something here. Like, stop making this a little side hustle. We have like breastfeeding mothers who are like, I play your solitaire game and win Bitcoin as a new mom, like when my baby's breastfeeding. And I'm like, this is insane. This is exactly what we've been waiting for, is like reaching these people who would never have ever like went and just downloaded a wallet in the app store, bought some Bitcoin. The leagues have made people even more addicted. And, we have had some users who I really love who are like, I had to delete it for like a few weeks because like I was playing way too much. Use the power of competition, just like that natural drive to want to compete, and use that as a way to like get people to have their friends download the game, start using Bitcoin. Way more people downloaded the game and played the game that was called Bitcoin Snake. So we changed the name. What we're seeing is like, people don't care what the Bitcoin price is. They still want to win Bitcoin. 6 months ago, people all wanted us to be like a Web3 company, and we were like, nah, like it's not going to happen.
Desiree Dickerson is the CEO of THNDR Games, a lightning-powered gaming platform that lets you earn Bitcoin for playing games. In our conversation, Desiree explained the challenges of building and testing new games. We talked about the value of earning Bitcoin, not just for gamers, but also for gaming platforms. And then we got into THNDR's latest game release and their future plans to build on Nostr. If you enjoyed this episode and if you learned something new, the best way that you can show your support for this show is by sending in sats over the Lightning Network. You can use any podcasting 2.0 app. There are dozens of them out there, but my favorite to use is Fountain. Before we get into today's show, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. And Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Desiree, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me today. I want to get into all that you're working on at THNDR Games, and I want to hear all about your experience at Lightning Labs. You've been in the Lightning ecosystem for a very long time. But before we do that, why don't we step back and give listeners your personal backstory and how you first discovered the Lightning Network?
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan. So I'm excited to be here. In terms of like discovering the Lightning Network, it's like kind of blurry for me. Like I remember I remember Bitcoin. But man, it's been forever. So yeah, as you know, I was the VP of business operations at Lightning Labs for about 4 years. And I mean, I was really always on Bitcoin Twitter, or, I was on Twitter constantly engaging in a discourse, talking with folks. And it was, I was at a really small boutique consulting firm at the time. I had like literally blocked every single person at my company on Twitter, so they couldn't see like my crazy Bitcoin stuff. And I was just really active, and I've been following the whole like scaling debate for we all did, and then I was following and really interested in Lightning, like the Lightning Network, and obviously following Lightning Labs and Elizabeth Stark, and it was super weird how it all kind of happened, but a mutual connection actually introduced Elizabeth and I via DM on Twitter, and it would kind of just like all happened from there. I had done a lot of work in strategy and operations consulting, and so that kind of transferred as much as it can to a startup. And yeah, I joined in 2018, and it kind of just like snowballed from there. It was, I can still remember like sitting in like our really early offices and like payments failing through the network. And, when it succeeded, I remember like being super excited and like being with like Boz and Lalu. And it was just like such a crazy time, like still so early. So now that we're here, and it's like, we send at THNDR, we send like thousands and thousands of payments every single day. It's just like wild to me. Like our success rate is like 99.9% success rate, like payment success rate. So I'm like, how have we come so far so quickly? And I know a lot of people give the Lightning Network they really talk shit on it because, it didn't scale fast enough. You couldn't send such large payments. And like now we're here. But it just kind of proves that like if you build things like in a really fundamentally sound way, it does take longer, but you end up with like a bit much more like robust and secure technology. And I think that's what we're seeing today. Like looking now, we're like March of 2023. I started Lightning Labs in June of 2018, and like I personally, as someone who's been like very very involved on all fronts for this long, am just like shocked how fast this has happened, which I know is like a very, I don't know, adverse take compared to like how most people view the Lightning Network's progress.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd love to dive into how your views on what the Lightning Network would become have evolved over time. Because, sitting in that little room in 2018 and watching payments fail to now hearing also every single day there's new people announcing new projects building on Lightning. There's all sorts of new use cases. There's an explosion of creativity in the space. How has your view on, what the Lightning Network will be used for evolved over time?
That's a great question. And now like I think back to it, like when I literally started at Lightning Labs, I really just viewed it as, a transaction network. I was like, hey, this is how people are going to send these like tiny little micropayments. And I actually wasn't even thinking about micropayments then. I was really just thinking about, hey, like this is how we're going to send Bitcoin. This is how Bitcoin is going to scale. And like that was it. And I'm not like the most technical person ever. And so, I hadn't like thought through all of this, but like being at Lightning Labs, obviously I learned a ton from everyone on the team, but also just kind of opened my eyes on like what is actually possible on this technology. And so, that was, I would say, like after the whole lightning torch pass, if everyone remembers that, that whole like, if folks aren't familiar, was like this whole, hey, I'm going to send you this payment, and then this person would double the amount and send it to the next person. So it would basically hop around the globe. It was like this lightning torch pass, and it was like really big deal because like it was the first time like Jack Dorsey, like he was really really engaged with the community. I did it, but it was also really interesting because it really illustrated the issues with liquidity, which like that to me was like, oh my god, like this is going to be a really tough one to solve. But it's also interesting now to see like all of the really great solutions for managing liquidity. But so that was the first time I was like, oh wow, like there's something here. And like I know a lot of people say that like layer zero is community. And I think that was like the first time I was like, oh wow, like layer zero here is probably the most important part of this stack. Like it's not even just Bitcoin. It's not even just the Lightning Network as layer two. Like layer zero is like what's going to drive this. And that's where in my mind, like I really started seeing like, hey, there's all these new possibilities on top of the Lightning Network, or just made possible by the Lightning Network and these microtransactions. And so I remember at like Crypto Springs, I don't remember what year it was, that I gave a talk on the use cases and like what type of like business possibilities this opens up. And obviously gaming is one of them. And so it's just, yeah, that was like, so very, very early on, I hadn't really thought about it outside of just sending Bitcoin. And so the Lightning Torch was a big point, and then it's kind of evolved from there. And I think after the Lightning conference in 2019, I think everybody kind of views that as like this really pinnacle point in the community where people started like building these crazy things and coming up with these awesome ideas. And obviously COVID happened after that, but that was when I really saw like, oh wow, like just the nature of the technology itself kind of is paving, like it was just opening up these new opportunities and new business models. Like we couldn't do what we're doing at Thunder and like incentivizing behavior through these micro incentive rewards if it wasn't for the Lightning Network. Like first and foremost, we're a gaming company and we're just trying to use the best tech to achieve our mission, and we couldn't do it without the Lightning network, which I think is really interesting. I think there's a lot more companies that are kind of coming up, like Stacker News is like another one that I really, really love, where, I think that the micro incentives and just like the micro rewards have been really, really beautifully woven into their business model. So like that wasn't, I don't, that wasn't, that's not possible without the Lightning Network. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you have these kind of catalyst moments that both the ones you mentioned, so the Torch and the Lightning Conference, both of those were even before I started to really take the Lightning Network seriously. So I this is not even part of my like, understanding of Lightning. I remember both those vaguely, but I didn't clue in that that would be, you know, oh, this is going to unlock any new possibilities. For me, the catalyst was Jack Mallers and some of the talks at Bitcoin 2021. But then it seems like even after that, now we're almost 2 years after, we're still now seeing more and more developers join in and more builders come in to build cool experiences. It's really interesting to see how, it's not been a flash in the pan. This, like, it seems like every time we get a new set of users, we unlock so many new doors that then people explore further, and those unlock more doors, and it's just like it seems like we're on kind of like an exponential trajectory when it comes to builders. So that's very cool to see. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about your transition from Lightning Labs at the earliest days, deciding to work there, and then deciding at some point, you know what, THNDR Games is where I see myself next. What was that? Can you talk me through that transition period and like what led you to go from Lightning Labs to THNDR Games?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for folks who know me really well, it was like the most natural transition ever. I mean, I never anticipated having a transition. My time at Lightning Labs was some of the most valuable, most incredible experience of my life. And I actually left because to deal with some family stuff, that's now totally resolved. But, I when I was at Lightning Labs, like we always talked about the use cases, like what this kind of opens up. And I've played video games my entire life, especially with my dad. It was like what we did, like as a father daughter activity, and we still do today. Like he's obsessed with Last of Us and like the new series, and so it's like been a huge part of my life. And that was always a use case to me, not only like selfishly because I love video games and play them a lot, but also because like I really saw gaming as a use case that can bring this to the world. Because there is like a lot of like fun things that people can do with Lightning that they might want to try out, but there is still like a little bit of friction where it's like, okay, if I want to go, and I'm not going to name any names because like I love all of the projects, but it's like, hey, if I want to go try out this project, I still have to like download a wallet first. I still have to get Bitcoin first, and then I can try the project. So like the way I kind of viewed gaming was like it kind of reverses that like chicken and egg kind of onboarding process, where with the games you literally just play. You don't have to sign up. There's like really nothing that you have to do, and you just play, and then you earn. You automatically have the Bitcoin or the sats that you've earned, and then you're kind of ushered into the onboarding process. And you're not going to, there's a very, very strong incentive to get people to onboard, because if you think about it, there's, you have something worth some value. You're not certain because you're new to all of this, but it's like, hey, I earned this. I spent time on it. I know that there's some intrinsic value, like I'm aware of the news. And I'm not going to just delete this app and not go through the process. So, once they try and cash out, we introduce them to some wallet options. We have a bunch of wallet partnerships, and we introduce them to a wallet option. And like, they're like, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to download this. I'm going to download Wallet of Satoshi and eventually have my sats. So that's a really, really interesting way to onboard people, where I think this is really the only use case I can think of where people are being onboarded in a way where like first they're given the tool, first they're given the Bitcoin, and then they're showed the tools to like bring them down the rabbit hole, or at least give them the ownership of their Bitcoin. And so that was always like really, really interesting to me. And if you also think about it, and I never really played mobile games. I don't love mobile games. I do now, but I really was interested in the mobile aspect, not only because of like the incredible kind of reach that mobile devices have given to gaming in general, in terms of like people in emerging markets, people who are like not traditional gamers, like, women, people who are considered like older adults. It Mobile games have really opened up the possibility to allow those individuals to game and consider themselves gamers. And those are also the individuals that like most often need or lack financial access and financial empowerment. And so that was like a really interesting like kind of alignment of two things that like I'm really passionate about. And also mobile games are just, everybody's downloaded an app before in the app store, everybody's probably played a mobile game. So it is a really safe and familiar environment to introduce someone to a new technology. They just go to the app store, Google Play, they download it, and then they play. Everyone has done this flow before. And so it's a really, really safe space to introduce Bitcoin, which, it doesn't feel scary. There is maybe a false sense of security that it's happening in the, confines of the App Store, but it's just like a really interesting way. And I think a really powerful way to introduce people to Bitcoin. And, that's what I saw that Jack Everett, who was the original founder of Thunder Games, I saw him working on this, and Jack and I have been close for many, many years. And I was always like, Jack, you should raise money. Like, you have something here. Like, stop making this a little side hustle. And I had taken some time off, and then he approached me and was like, hey, I know that you're probably going to look for something to do when everything, and he was like a good friend during everything I was going through, and he's like, I know you're going to look for something soon. I don't want to be rude, but will you please consider coming and helping raise money and like actually make this a real thing, and not just like a couple of games that people can play and test out Bitcoin. And I was like, yes, hands down. And that was what made me kind of join, because I really think that mobile games and just really games in general is the way we can onboard the world. And I know it's working because 80% of our users are totally new to Bitcoin. And we have people every day who are like, I never thought I would be doing anything with crypto or Bitcoin. We have like grandmas who are like obsessed and are like, I I cannot believe that this is my life. I never imagined this. We have like breastfeeding mothers who are like, I play your solitaire game and win Bitcoin as a new mom, like when my baby's breastfeeding. And I'm like, this is insane. Like this is exactly what we've been waiting for, is like reaching these people who would never have ever like went and just downloaded a wallet in the app store, bought some Bitcoin and done the whole KYC process by themselves. Like these individuals would have never been reached in the traditional paradigm that we're operating in. And like, that is what I absolutely love that we're doing right now.
Very cool. I think that's a really important point too, that people can earn Bitcoin, and specifically the way you kind of have eliminated a lot of the roadblocks for people. You just kind of show up, you start playing, and then you have this opportunity to earn right away. And it doesn't force them to go through the rabbit hole of understanding Bitcoin or understanding liquidity on the Lightning Network. It kind of abstracts all that away and says, here's this cool new thing. And then it allows someone to still learn if they want to. They can go further down the rabbit hole and explore further afterwards. But it kind of puts the Bitcoin in their hands first and says, here's your reward. Now I want to touch on something that I've seen in the gaming space as a casual observer, is that especially about a year or two ago, so right around when you were starting at Thunder Games, there was this movement towards play to earn. And this seemed to mostly focus on crypto. It was mostly like proprietary tokens spun up and play to earn games. And I think there were examples of people earning a lot of money doing it. I don't know, again, the specific details of all the games, but I've heard stories of that happening and people getting really excited about it. And it became a bit of a movement. What was it at Thunder Games that made you guys decide, you know what, Bitcoin is the right approach here? We're not going to dive into that play to earn ecosystem. We're not going to spin up a token. We're going to focus on this. Why did you, at the time when, all the popularity was in the play to earn category, why did you decide, Bitcoin was the right approach and Lightning was the right toolkit for this?
I think there's like two things. Like Jack and myself are like Bitcoin maxis. I've obviously been in Bitcoin forever, so the likelihood of me switching or Jack switching would be like very, very low. But the rest of the team they're completely new to Bitcoin. They're new to crypto. They're just like game developers at heart. And, something we thought about, like really, really thought about at the beginning of the company was like, okay, like who are we as a company? Like, first and foremost, we're a gaming company. Obviously we do all the Bitcoin stuff and like Jack has been doing stuff with Bitcoin forever. Our CTO, he is like doing chain code seminar, is like really getting in the weeds with like, all of the Bitcoin tech. But, that wasn't always the case. People were just like, we want to create a cool gaming company. And so first and foremost, we focused on being a really great gaming company because we all love video games. And what we also kind of observed, which I think is the truth, is that there's two different audiences when it comes to games. You have traditional gamers who, they want to play games for the pure joy of play. Like that's their reward, is the pure joy of play. And they actually hate microtransactions, and like they hate this whole thought of like there being like an actual monetary value in games. Like, they really like think about like the Diablo, I think it was Diablo 2 auction house. There's a lot of uproar about microtransactions in that game. There's tons of instances of gaming companies trying to introduce like some sort of value, whether it be a token or like actual money, and people really really were not happy about it. And then you have like this other audience is, people who want to play games to like actually earn money. So it's more of a job. It's more of doing X to get Y. And it's not about necessarily the pure joy of play. Like it is fun, I'm sure, to at a certain extent, but the whole idea is to make profit. Whereas with audience one, the whole idea is to have fun and be entertained. And so, obviously understanding like the shitcoinery that goes on with like all of these tokens, like we also knew that that was going to fall out. Like it still shocks me that there's so many people who don't understand supply and demand, and like, they experience inflation as we all have over the past year or so, but like continue to introduce like inherently inflationary game economies into their gaming ecosystems. And so we, saw that that was going to fall through. But so I would say that like, we're definitely more on the traditional gaming side of things, but we also do see that like there are these gaming companies who make massive amounts of money off of people coming to their games and playing their games, and also partaking in different activities in and around the game. So it used to be, hey, we just you bought your gaming console and you bought your game cartridges and you played. That's not how it is anymore. People, they come to the game, they download it. You often have like a monthly subscription. I have a subscription to Nintendo and to PlayStation. You have those. And then you also are paying for things in the game. You're paying for skins, you're paying for like different level access. And then on top of that, I don't do this myself, but a lot of people create content for the games themselves. They're doing they're providing all of this like UGC that's generating these companies revenue, and they're not getting anything in return outside of playing the game, which is fine. But then when you hear things like, I believe it's like Roblox's community creates like hundreds of times more content than their studio does alone, and that's how they're making money. So to me, it's just like this one way like value sink where it's just constantly the players just giving, and like how much is the entertainment really really worth, and is there a way that you can actually start rewarding in a small way these gamers for the time and the money and just the value that they're generating for these gaming companies. So that's what we first and foremost really thought about, was like, hey, like let's not like make it so people can like pay for their house. Like that also doesn't work out unless you're creating a crazy token scheme, because like you have to make money as a games company. So you essentially have to make way more than you give away. So you can't be giving away like $10,000 a year to every user. Like that just doesn't make money, and it doesn't scale. I doubt it would even scale for like Candy Crush or um, Angry Birds. So what we're doing is just the micro rewards, but we also saw that these like micro incentives, these micro payments, incentivize people to play longer. They incentivize people to play more and like do more in the games. So like for instance, Solitaire, which has been like an insane hit, it reached like 21 in the App Store. I think it's like the most successful Bitcoin game of all time, and it's literally just Solitaire. But people are playing um, on average 38 minutes per user per day, which is like unheard of for a casual mobile game, especially one that is literally the classic style Solitaire. And so you're seeing that, these people are having fun, but they are being rewarded, and we're actually able to like very heavily influence user behavior and like really create loyalty with our customers. And I think that's what one piece where like a lot of these companies are missing. If you're paying people, they're your workers. But if you're just like tipping them and like giving them value, just like, rewards points for an airline, this actually creates loyalty with your customers and they continue to come back. So, we've A/B tested adding Bitcoin to the games. So we'll have a game with Bitcoin and without Bitcoin, or with Bitcoin and without Bitcoin. And we actually saw that long-term retention increases by 516% just by adding these microtransactions. And we're talking like people winning 2 to 3 sats for playing. So yeah, I mean, you can win more obviously, but like, yesterday I won 433, but the day before that I won like 2 sats. So yeah, it's very, very little amounts, and it drives retention that much.
That's amazing. So when you think about the two different audiences you're trying to appeal to, and a lot of the different metrics that you just rhymed off, what is the most important metric for Thunder Games?
I mean, our most important metric, just overall, is, I would say, retention for sure, just because that shows that people are coming back. And then, our hypothesis that we've proven is like, hey, yes, we are giving players money, but where those players stay around longer, they interact with more ads, they buy more things in the game, and so we make more money per user, and we're able to offer a percentage of that to our user as a reward. And then overall, we just make more money because they spend so much time um, in the game. So retention is definitely the highest one, because I think that's more important than having a huge, like a really, really high monthly active user rate. Like that's one that we are increasing organically right now, but retention is the most important, because those are the folks that stick around and they spend the most money in your games.
Makes sense. Now, one thing I've always been curious about, again, this is as like a casual game observer who has never been deep in the weeds of gaming at all, is how do you estimate the popularity of a game beforehand, right? Like you're going to have imagine like a multi-month cycle of building and focusing on this game and trying to bring it to market. And only once it's there, do you then figure out, do users like it or not? Right. Like, so how do you, in that planning process, in the building process, how do you, what are you doing to like optimize the game and try and set it up for success when it does launch?
So there's like a ton of like, and I've learned a ton now from actually working in the gaming industry. But obviously you learn a lot from your past games. So like we've learned so much from, especially like Bitcoin Bay and from Snake. We've learned so much from those games. But there's also a ton of other stuff that I had no idea that went on behind the scenes. Like for instance, if you have a new game idea, you might like create a really, really quick MVP that has like 10 levels and launch it under a different company name in the App Store, under a different company, a different name than what you're going to name it, and also have the a lot of the visuals be different, maybe some to just test if the visuals are working, and you launch it to see if like, okay, just like the game in general will be successful. And it's, you don't do like a big, you just launch it in the app store. It can be like, you know, based in certain regions, and then you can gain a lot of data from that. Sometimes you can launch like multiple versions of the game, like A, B, and C, to see which one is more successful. And then after that, like you can kind of just continue doing that and continue to build. Like for instance, we do this a lot with visuals, so and like game names. So we've like, you know, Bitcoin Snake used to be called Sats, with like three S's, like a
Yeah.
snake hissing. And, we A/B tested that, and, way more people downloaded the game and played the game when it was called Bitcoin Snake. So we changed the name. And same with like all of the visuals, like the app icons. I think for the new game, I think there's like maybe 20 or 30 different themes for like the app store images and the app icons. But there's like, we have like 1,000 different visuals that will go through A/B testing to see what works best. So you can do that all the way from, just testing the entire just game style in the front to like the end of the process, which is like testing these very small things like game name and like pictures and like hues of colors. And it's just so much A/B testing, because you're right, like you can spend 2 or 3 months. Like for us, we're focusing mostly on casual, but we do have a like more mid-core game coming up at the end of the year, which is like more PvP style, which I'm probably not supposed to share that, but like your users or your viewers will get that like snippet. But that's one that will do a ton of testing like under different company name, just to see like the style of game that works. And that will take us 6 months to develop that game at least. So we do have to do a ton of testing. And people have games that they create for like 3 years, so you can't like dump 3 years of running a company into like an idea you have no idea that works. So it's like, if you've read the lean startup and like the idea of like this like iterative, like putting out products and testing and learning, it's like that on like steroids is for mobile games, because it's just constant A/B testing. But that's how we got to the success with Solitaire. So it works. It's just like a method that entire industry has found that is like kind of tried and true.
That's fascinating. Are there any other, operational lessons maybe anything that you've picked up at Lightning Labs that you're now applying to Thunder Games, and just like how to run a business and like help the business, scale through big ups and big downs that to some degree are not even in our control. When the Bitcoin price goes up and down, we see enthusiasm in the industry go up and down. How do what are the lessons that you've learned about like building a resilient business that can last and scale and thrive in any environment?
Yeah, I think the biggest, like, I mean, this is just like a very general lesson, is just like operating really lean, and focusing on the basics. I think Lightning Labs is like really great at this, or was, when at least when I was there. It's just like, hey, we're really focused on building this product, and like that's all we're hyper focused on. Like we're not focused on all of the hype and fanfare and marketing. Obviously you need some of that, but like really focusing on making sure the team is really strong, making sure the product is getting out, and then the product will speak for itself. And I think Lightning Labs is like an amazing example of that, really focusing on the tech. And so that is something we've definitely carried over to Thunder. And like, we kicked off as like a full team in October of 2021, about like a year and a half ago. And, that was like, there was so much fanfare. It was like the top of the bull market. Everybody was like excited and throwing money around and sponsoring this and that. And, I really just kept that in the back of my mind about Lightning Labs. It's just like remaining laser focused. And, I think it's really proven well. We've continued to operate lean, and, although this bear market really sucks, even for us, we do feel a little bit more comfortable being like, hey, we have, enough funds. Like we don't have to lay people off. We've been very conservative about how we spend and how we grow. And I think that's been a really, really important thing to learn, not only just like for Bitcoin, but just for startups in general. But then, yeah, I mean, I think I was at Lightning Labs during a bear market and, saw the team like fundraise during a bear market. And so like I definitely witnessed that. And like we're seeing that again, where it's just like if I talk to an investor and say Bitcoin, they're just like, nah, not happening. So, I think it's just like figuring out how to navigate those conversations. And, it's tough because it's like, you know, I would say like 6 months ago, people all wanted us to be like a Web3 company. And we were like, nah, like it's not going to happen. So it's just also just like staying so crazy focused and, really sticking to Bitcoin is hard. And, you see so many companies pivot away. But I think it will be worth it in the end. We'll come out stronger. Like I saw it in the last bear market, and I know we'll see it again. But it's just going to be a little bit rough.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage empowers engineers to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments into their business stack with an enterprise-grade experience. The team at Voltage is building the complete toolset so that you can do more than simply spin up nodes, but also understand and interpret your node's data. Their new product Surge gives engineers the capability to quickly solve problems and optimize operations. With node insights and visibility through time series data, you get dynamic and complex insights never available before. You can get complete control with insanely fast onboarding, advanced client-side encryption, and zero management infrastructure, making backups, networking, and upgrades simple. Get a free 7-day trial today at voltage.cloud. Yeah. Well, I mean, in the meantime, it seems like there's still a ton of activity, even despite the, bear market prices. Maybe this is because you guys have so many people that are new to Bitcoin. Maybe it doesn't phase them as much because I think I saw a tweet from you guys that was like in a recent quarter, I think you did 530,000 Lightning transactions. I think I saw also 20,000 plus people in your Discord. Are these kind of metrics?
Yeah.
Are these at all related to the bear market, or are they mostly related to like launching new games? Like, do you see these numbers ebb and flow with prices or with new
No,
game launches
we
or something
definitely
else?
we definitely see like the numbers all really increase after a new game launch, or even with leagues, we launched like our social competitive leveling system leagues. And anytime we launch something like that, it's a huge, 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 huge spike. But in terms of like the price, we don't see anything, which is like really incredible. I think we've like luckily hit a sweet spot because like mobile gaming in general is like recession resistant. There are some things in the past year with like Apple's app transparency tracking changes that have really, really impacted the mobile games industry and how you acquire users and make money. But other than that, people love to play games during recessions and financial hard financial times. And what we're seeing is like people don't care what the Bitcoin price is; they still want to win Bitcoin no matter what the price is. And I think it's the small amount. They're just like, hey, this is going to be worth something in the future. So it almost makes them want to play more because they're like, hey, I can keep winning when it's like really, really cheap. And then it will be worth more in the future. But like, yeah, we've only seen our user base grow, and also spend more money, which that's another thing I'm shocked by. And we should have our head of analytics look into. It's like I'm shocked that people are buying like VIP subscriptions to our games and like paying for like no ads and like boosters and stuff, but like that number just continues to go up as well. So we have hit a sweet spot there, thankfully. But yeah, our users they don't care about the price, which I love. So
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, I want to touch on leagues and specifically the Solitaire launch because you mentioned a couple of metrics that I thought were really interesting. The 38 minutes per player per day just blew me away, because that's got to be on like the level of like Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter in terms of usage. I mean, that's just like an incredible number, especially for, as you said, like a classic game like Solitaire. It's like you guys clearly unlocked something, and it's causing a lot of people to change their behaviors and to use this game a lot. And I'd love to, break down, if we can break down some of the elements in there that cause this number to be so high. Because to me, that's just like a really, really significant number.
Yeah, it's a little wild. I mean, like again, when we decided to do solitaire, I was like, no, this is the stupidest idea. Like no one will play solitaire. And luckily I do not let myself make any of the game choice decisions because I'm not a game designer. And so we went with solitaire, and obviously I think some of the hype around it was like, hey, you just win Bitcoin. Like, but like if you play the game, which I if you have played solitaire ever in your life, I highly recommend downloading this game because it is really the most like elegant solitaire I've ever played. And at this point I've played a lot in testing. I mean, the UX is just incredible. Like the way that the cards move, like the animations. But there is a really unique like scoring system. So our chief product officer has like a background in behavioral psychology. He's worked on a lot of social casino style games, and so he's really really thought through the scoring system. So there is like some of the success is around we really have amazing game developers and game designers, but then there's the Bitcoin aspect. Like people love it, and we have hourly prize draws. So, folks who aren't familiar, we the way you win Bitcoin in the games is that you collect tickets and it's entered into a raffle, and every hour the raffle is drawn and you win a certain amount of satoshis. And so there's an element of randomness. We are going to experiment with just like winning sats in the games, but this is like a game mechanic that like tons of game studios use. So I think that element of like, hey, you can win Bitcoin every hour keeps people coming back, keeps people playing for longer, because it's like the more tickets I earn, the more Bitcoin I can win. But then this league system that we launched, and I'm not sure, have you ever played Duolingo?
I've used Duolingo in the past. Yep.
Yeah, and have you seen like they have leagues in it?
I
Um,
haven't. It was a few years ago. I didn't have any
okay.
leagues when I used it.
So they have a league system where it's like, hey, you earn so many points every week, and then you get bumped up or get bumped down based on like how you perform against other users. And like I'm addicted. I've played Duolingo every single day for almost a year. I'm stuck in the Pro League, if people were wondering, and I'm very mad about it. But so we kind of took like that like leaguing structure and like made it even more competitive and more addicting. And it's a daily league structure. If you don't play during the day, you don't get like relegated or promoted. But yeah, you compete against everyone in the community. There's like screen names or whatever we call them these days. Well, it shows how old I am. But yeah, and so people then compete in these leagues, and then I, it's not available now, but like based on like your leagues, like you'll get more. It is in there now where you get ticket multipliers. So it's like if you make it to this league, your tickets are worth like X amount more. You get X amount more tickets. So there is like an incentive to play in the leagues, and it just makes it way more competitive. So people are. I don't have the stats on hand, but I can always grab them at some point. Like the leagues have made people even more addicted, and we have had some users who I really love who are like, I had to delete it for like a few weeks because like I was playing way too much. And I was like, but you were
Yeah.
winning so much Bitcoin. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be
Yeah.
addicted.
That's funny. I've definitely felt that myself. I've played solitaire so many times, and I find myself, I keep opening up the app again, and I'm like, why am I so like, it's solitaire? Why am I so enthused with this? I can't quite figure it out. But it's true. It actually it made me keep opening the app every single day.
I will tell you, I had to like yell at my coworkers the other day because it was like, you guys are destroying my family. My dad calls me and he's so pissed. He's like, I can't get out of this league. And he's like, his girlfriend is beating him and he's so mad. And I'm like, oh my God, you're literally tearing my family apart. Like, it's addicting. I know. So yeah, it is. There's a lot of elements that go into it, but I mean, obviously, the Bitcoin has like a huge part of it. And I think with Solitaire was so special because it is a game that everyone knows how to play, but traditionally, older audiences play Solitaire. And if most mobile gamers are, ages like 30, 35 to 50, mostly women, like I think 51% women. And so, Solitaire was like, okay, if we can get those individuals playing Solitaire, we can bring Bitcoin to those individuals. So, our Solitaire audience definitely skews more, more towards like female and like older audiences, which is amazing because like this is the first time these people are interacting with Bitcoin and they all have downloaded wallets and, play regularly. So it's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, because of this success of leagues, how has that changed or, informed your ideas about introducing competitive elements into other games, like the rest of the games that you have in your product suite today or future games?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think, a lot of people, because how we've started the company out, we were like, hey, let's just prove like the first hypothesis that adding Bitcoin to games makes sense. And then once we can prove that, we can kind of go from there. So a lot of people like mistakenly really view us as like mobile game studio, which we're not. We're more of a mobile games platform. So we have obviously an in-house studio and published 5, soon to be 6 games in the App Store and Google Play. But really kind of the next step is, the first pillar of Thunder Games is gamified rewards. That's what we've already built and is obviously working. The second pillar is the social competitive layer, or like esports, kind of like micro esports. We kind of call it casually for now. And then there's a third pillar, which we haven't announced yet, hopefully in the next couple of months. But the second pillar is really about the social competitive piece because we think people first want to play games and they want to win rewards. What do they want to do next? They want to compete with people. So leagues is the first feature of that to come out. And it's going really well. Like I mentioned, we're going towards the like PvP style games, hopefully here coming up soon. And so we'll have more of that. And I think with tools like Nostr, where we're really seeing like this enhanced social network, we're able to actually use those tools internally at Thunder to connect people in the community to compete more directly and like really help with like some of like the matchmaking that is necessary in order to like allow people to compete, because people forget like how hard it actually is to create a game, and matchmaking is something that's like really difficult, especially to create like in a bespoke manner. So like Nostr is like really kind of opening up some of those abilities. So this year you guys will see a ton from us when it comes to like more like social competitive features around gaming. I'm really kind of playing on the idea of like what's the next social network. And I think with this hype around the metaverse, we all believe it could be in games. And so that's not, we're not creating a metaverse, but like we're getting towards that next step of like social networking, which is kind of competing and like the transfer of value and kind of persisting within games, if that makes sense.
Right. Now, you mentioned Nostr, and right now it seems like everyone's talking about it, but most people are talking about it in the context of Twitter or, replacing Twitter and doing things like that, or a blog platform or something like that. I haven't heard anyone yet talk about Nostr as it relates to gaming. Are you able to reveal any more about your plans with Nostr and future games?
Yes. So, and it is very early on, but again, like we love like playing with new tech. We play around with as much of it as we can, whether people like it or they don't. And we just like very slowly introduce these things to our users. We always build for our users first. Like our users never wanted NFTs. Like we asked them. We're like, if the users want it, we'll figure it out. But they were like, nah. There was one person who wanted an NFT, and that was it. And we have like, a ton of users. And so with Nostr though, our community is just like crazy about reputation. And now with these leagues, they really want proof that they've reached a certain league. Like for instance, I've never made it to Vegas League, and people are so proud that they've made it to Vegas League, but you can get kicked out very, very quickly, and most people do, but they want proof that they've been in the Vegas League. So with our next game, we will be announcing what we're kind of considering this like this gaming graph concept, as we're kind of calling it right now. And one of like the really cool things that will be live when this comes out is this idea of badges and reputation. So if you come and you play in Thunder and you reach the Vegas League, you will get a badge. So the games actually have badges in them, just to show that you have a badge, and you can add your NPub to the game in the Thunder panel, and then you will be issued a badge when you reach any league. So even if you're only in like Reno or Atlantic City, you will still get a badge, and that will be issued to your pub key. And there will be a way to view it. And then what's really interesting and why we want to do this is, we'll expand from just badges, but this idea of reputation and, the ability to transfer your reputation between different environments or different clients. So it's like very powerful, even if you're like two different gaming studios, to like understand like, hey, this is someone who's like a VIP in the Thunder ecosystem, and they're a mod in the Thunder ecosystem, and they're like, they're creating their own events, they're reaching really high levels. That means something in another environment, especially to another games company, because they can identify that person and like maybe approach them to be a mod, or like really engage them in their community. And I think that's really, really important. Like for instance, like we want our users to be able to like go to like Stacker News and have their reputation transferred to Stacker News. So we really want to like, we see this world, especially with Nostr, where you have this persistent identity and this persistent reputation across all of these different environments. And so this is our first way of like kind of getting started, is just with the badges. So that is going to be live next week. We're doing some other cool, just like fun things to play around with the tech. One is we have like a progressive jackpot. So the amount that people can win every hour during the draws is influenced by different things, like how many people are playing, what people are earning. And it's not going to be live next week, but maybe like the week or two after, is people can actually zap the Thunder Nostr account, and it will be added directly to the prize pool for that hour. So if like you're playing and you and your friends want to all play the same hour and see who can win the most, like you can all zap the Thunder Nostr account, and it will go literally immediately directly into the prize pool. It'll be like a super fun way for people to like kind of break down that fourth wall and like influence the game themselves through Nostr, which I think is super cool. And then obviously the idea of gaming graph will do a lot of like the kind of matchmaking and like connecting people to other players in this like gaming graph via Nostr. But like that's still like very, very TBD, but we want to like contribute and like start building. And our community has actually asked for this, so we're that will be live when this comes out. So we're really pumped about that.
Very cool. Now, I have a lot of questions related to Nostr. First is, why choose Nostr for this kind of like identity system? I know there are a couple other kind of competing or overlapping identity systems. There's DIDs, there's slash tags. What was it about Nostr? Was it the architecture or just the momentum that kind of ecosystem has today that compelled you to step in and say, this is right for Thunder?
Yeah, I think so. First, we had been looking, and again, like we're not saying this will be like we do say where it's like, hey, like if something comes along that's better than Lightning, we'll use it. We're all about our users first. I mean, I doubt that's going to happen, but and again, like we're just trying this out. We were looking at DIDs before. I think it was like a little bit harder to get spun up, and there wasn't a lot of people around it. Our users had no idea what DIDs were, or they didn't really care. And so, we're still all looking at DIDs and would love to experiment. And again, we're only going to use the thing that works the best for our community. But our community is so pumped about Nostr. They're sharing their pub keys. And I think, there's just a ton of momentum around it. And we see like our peers, everyone that like we respect and love are building on it. So it's like, hey, like our users have been asking for this thing, like let's just go, and like hopefully it will contribute to the greater good, and like maybe it will inspire somebody else to build something else. But again, like we'll still continue to like experiment and explore. It's like not a forever decision, but I think like the momentum was the big one behind this. And I mean, I don't know any of the technical stuff, but it seems like, I don't know, the team was able to like spin this stuff up pretty easy.
Nice. Now, you mentioned earlier in the conversation an issue with Apple, Apple restrictions on advertising, I believe, and kind of how that's affecting the gaming industry. Is this a potential sidestep with Nostr where if you have an identity and you can carry that identity across games and maybe even across like totally different ecosystems, you can begin to form an idea of like who a person is and then target them with advertisements that way? Or am I kind of off the beaten path here?
So no, you're not at all. So, well, first of all, like some of these like ATT and IDFA changes that have happened in the mobile games industry, which really kind of reduces the amount of tracking that a company can do with their users, which I love. Like I'm all for privacy, but it does make it harder to do user acquisition campaigns and like really you know target users with kind of like advertising you're serving them. So it's just these gaming companies are not able to make as much money. For us, we're still able to see a lot with like just the payments piece. So, it hasn't necessarily affected us as much. But yes, like with Nostr, I think if Nostr evolves how we all like hope it kind of evolves, I think that there's a level, like a greater level of like ways we can interact with our users. And I think, and again, I'm still like trying to understand and like, inform myself about Nostr, but I think that there will be like the ability for people to share what they want to share. Where it's like with, how ads have been, it's like, hey, like, your mom died and you're really, really sad. And like, they're like serving you ads for like a game with a coffin in it or something, it's like massively inappropriate. And so I think like, Nostr offers a world where it's like, hey, like we won't be like as hurt by some of the changes that Apple has made, but like the user will be in control of like what information they're sharing and like how we can interact with them. So I think what you said is like totally spot on. Like I don't know what that's going to look like. I think we're just like building fun stuff for our users right now, but I think like hopefully that is like a future that we reach eventually.
Yeah. And the idea of being able to zap the Thunder Games account and have that added to the prize pool directly, and then the idea of being able to like pay for a VIP league access, all this kind of seems to funnel more money into this ecosystem and then blast it out to users. Do you expect to see then that users start to earn more over time? Like right now, you mentioned you can maybe get a few sats someday, maybe get a few hundred sats another day. Is it realistic to expect that to 10x over time and to really start seeing numbers that just continue to grow in terms of what someone can earn playing these games?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of like the more money that we make, and like the wider our profit margins are, the more we can share with our users, and we will always continue to do that. And so it's like with the hourly prize draws, like we changed that last September, when we felt like a little bit more comfortable, like, hey, we're making revenue and like we can share more. So as the company increases and like some of these things increase, like the ability, like the App Store, obviously you can't pay for anything in Bitcoin. And when you buy something from us in the App Store, they take 15%. Um, and so with you can buy things for the game on a third party website, which is very burdensome. Like obviously if I'm not going to go to thunder.com/skins and purchase the skins in Bitcoin and then hope they show up in the game, or they will show up. But with like something like Nostr, if people are already on there, it's their social network. Like they're already looking at their badges, they're doing all those things. It's a much, much like more natural step, and there's a lot less friction for them to make these purchases via like their Nostr account and just like zap Thunder and like their skins show up in the game. Like I think, and then we're not getting 15% of our revenue taken from the App Store, and we're able to offer a lot more things to our users because we're somewhat outside of the bounds of the App Store and Google Play at that point. We'll always have a leg in this kind of like confined world of apps like Apple and Google, but I think like Nostr and combined with Lightning really allow us to have our other leg in this world outside, and really opens up like the ability for us to like make more money and more, and I don't even know what sky's the limit, new business possibilities for mobile games.
Right. Now, have you guys considered, you know, considering the Apple and Google kind of monopolies on the respective app stores, have you thought at all about doing web games to kind of like sidestep that? Because it seems like 15% today is still a reasonably high cut of anyone's profit margin. And I've heard various people in the Bitcoin ecosystem talk about the need for a third kind of option. Maybe that's the web. Maybe that's an entirely new operating system, which maybe is like a little bit down the road. But what are your thoughts on how you kind of like your relationship with these app stores and whether or not they play a role at Thunder Games moving forward?
Yeah, I think, as it stands now, the app stores will always be a big and important part of our business, and not necessarily in the sense like we need them to make money. I mean, obviously we do now, but um, the vast like majority of the world is has an iPhone or an Android, and so the app stores, and the reason why we comply and like why we always stay in them and play by their rules is because that is the greatest gateway to reaching more people. And if we were to like pick some other like weird operating system like graphene or something, we wouldn't be able to reach as much people. And so, as much as we hate them and we hate the confined nature of them, like they're absolutely necessary for us to achieve our mission of bringing these games and bringing Bitcoin to the world. However, we most of our games, our past two games, and all of our games from now on will be web compatible. So we will have browser based games. I do think like there is, from what I've read, a very slow trend towards people playing mobile or web games. We haven't like aped into it yet because again, like most people are playing games on their device or on a console or a PC. So, we are just making sure that all of our games are built in a way where we can have them be in a web browser. And so, it's only a matter of time and, us having enough people and enough funds to like actually get those out and be available in a browser. But we're definitely heading that direction alongside mobile, but mobile first.
Right. That makes sense. And yeah, I totally see the appeal of using iOS and Android for discoverability and just getting at a wider audience of people that you would never be able to reach organically. Now, when you were thinking about the Thunder Games roadmap, I want to get your sense for what you're most excited about. You teased a couple things, some things you're ready to reveal, some things not. What really like gets you up in the morning excited about the roadmap for Thunder Games?
So I am very excited about this next game. I'm really not good at it. It is called Bitcoin Blocks, and it is like a mix between Tetris and Sudoku, and it will be live like with leagues already implemented, and it will also have skins, which I'm really really excited about. I think it has like 4 or 5 skins already. Then there's a bunch of skins that are like in the back burner that will release slowly, so we can have like some exciting fanfare around them. I'm really excited for blocks, and then some of the esports stuff that's coming out this year. So, I think this isn't like our mission, but I think it's, esports is really interesting, but like it's really only like accessible to like the people who are really good or who are making a lot of money. And so we want to like really kind of hone in on like micro influencers and like these micro esports where, I can get a tournament going. I'm anywhere in the world. Like we have a lot of, you know, folks who are in Latin America. If somebody is like in El Salvador, if a lot of users in El Salvador, they want to get a tournament going, like they can get spun up, have like 10 of their friends all playing in a tournament and all competing against each other and have that like available, that as a tool available for anyone, anywhere, at any time. And I think, that's one thing I'm really excited about is like kind of unleashing the power of like these casual games on small communities and seeing how people use them, and hopefully like it's a way for them to bring in more people who aren't playing the games, who haven't used Bitcoin before, get them in the tournament and use the power of competition, just like that natural drive to want to compete, and use that as a way to like get people to have their friends download the game, start using Bitcoin. So I'm really, really excited about that. A couple other things, along with kind of this second pillar in like esports, we will start bringing some of these tools to other games. So we are opening doors for publishing. So hopefully we'll be experimenting and like bringing some new, really fresh games to the kind of Thunder platform this year. So excited about that. And then the Nostr thing is cool. And then we have one other thing in a couple of months. It's going to be like huge, and I'm really excited, and hope maybe like Jack and I can come on and tell you all about it in a few months, because it's going to be insane and big, and I'm so excited and proud of the team. So nothing but like crazy good stuff with Thunder this year. It's just everybody should just be ready for like nonstop like shipping product constantly. So
Love
that's
it.
the plan. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now I want to pick apart the plan for the future games. I see there's multiple categories here. You've done original games, you've done classic games, and this next one seems to be like a remix, kind of a classic, and this Bitcoin blocks. What is your strategy moving forward? Is it to work across all three components and do like some classics, some originals, some remixes, or is there a sweet spot where you guys think you belong in one category and you're going to go all in there?
Yeah, I think we're always going to have a mix, because this one game that we're releasing later in the year, which I mentioned is like more of a mid-core, is, going to be a Thunder original, which is what they'll be called. Our games, our mobile studio, like they're really, really, really talented. And so it's like we want to kind of transition them to like building these more like rich, deep games where like Bitcoin is integrated in more interesting ways. There's ways to compete. There's like a really big social element to them. So our team specifically will kind of transition their focus to these originals. And then, when we go down the publishing route, we'll do more of these like kind of casual style, lots of the classics, or like, bringing in the classics and like always having those available. Because like, if you look at like the successful games in the App Store, like obviously you think of Candy Crush and Among Us, and, these like really kind of new idea type games, but really the ones that are like the biggest revenue drivers are the classics. And that's a big reason why we chose Solitaire. Is like Solitaire is one of the highest grossing games in the App Store of all time. And so, people are obviously playing them, they're spending money in them. And so we do have our differentiator, which is the Bitcoin piece. So we will still constantly have like the classics, like what those look like, who knows? I would personally love like an idle clicker game, but I don't think we're gonna have an idle clicker. Sorry to disappoint anybody, but so yeah, I think we'll always have a good mix. And then again, it's like we have to be very flexible to the industry. Like these app store changes have pretty much wiped out the ability to make money in hyper casual games. So we're not doing hyper casual anymore. So we're very, very flexible, but that's kind of the current plan for the next like year or two.
Interesting. So the hyper casual, you think the hyper casual genre has come under attack with these latest changes, correct?
Hmm. Yes, because their revenue
Interesting.
models were like largely based on like ad revenue, rather than like in-app purchases, like really kind of relying on whales, like these like mid-core, like hardcore games, like really rely on like whales spending like tens, $20,000. Like crazy people spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars in these games. And so hyper casual, no one spends money. So like the fact that like they can't efficiently target users with their ads and make money in ads, it's like really kind of drowning out the entire like casual space. And we'll see what happens, but yeah, it's they've taken a huge, huge hit.
Huh. That's very interesting. All right. Well, this was a fascinating conversation. I'm glad we got to dive into gaming. I learned a ton from this. I want to jump into a segment I do at the end of every show. It's called the lightning round. Got a few rapid fire questions for you. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a lightning powered platform for generating high quality transcripts of all your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. To see the results for yourself, you can check out my personal website where I host transcripts for all my podcast episodes. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. All right. What is one book that has changed your view of the world?
I think since it's like National Women's Month or something, The Awakening by Kate Chopin, like that's one of my favorites. It's just like a really empowering and depressing story. It's very dark, but I love it. Yeah.
Interesting. What is one game that you wish you could immediately just, snap the fingers, you could turn lightning payments on for that game? Any game.
Animal Crossing, hands down. Like I would like literally put all my money in Bitcoin and like fuck over Tom Nook and his taxes and all of his bullshit. Like Animal Crossing for sure.
Okay. I like it. If you could only hold one asset for the next decade and it could not be Bitcoin, what asset would it be?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't. I That's a really good one. I mean, like the funny thing, I would I got into Bitcoin from Dogecoin, so I'm just gonna say Dogecoin because like YOLO, like that's how I got here.
Fair
Maybe
enough.
maybe it's how I'll like go to my grave.
Fair enough. If you could change one thing about the Lightning Network, what would you change?
I would change, honestly, I would change our community's perception that like this is just going to become something like people are just going to like come here and be interested in it. I think I would change the fact that like people don't recognize it. No one cares. No one cares about Bitcoin. No one cares about the Lightning Network. They only care about making money. And like we have to somehow like change like our approach to bringing Bitcoin to new people. Like that is 100% what I would change.
And then finally, who's one person that you'd like to give a shout out to in the Bitcoin or Lightning ecosystem for doing great work?
Mm, can I do? Yeah, okay. Is it like I want to shout out Jack, because Jack Everett, that my Jack, because he is like literally one of the smartest
Yeah.
people I've ever worked with. He's just like so incredibly talented. I think he's selfishly he's the best Jack of them all. And I don't know, he's just like very quietly builds. Like he's never. I mean, I'm inspired by him every day. He's never like none of the noise ever bothers him, and he's just like such a straight shooter. And like he puts up with me every day. So like I give him a huge shout out for that for sure.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this today. I learned a lot. Where can listeners go to learn more about you and Thunder?
Yes, follow Thunder Games at THNDR Games, so Thunder with no vowels, on Twitter. We're always there. You can find our Discord there. It's super active. There's also way more ways to earn sats there. You can follow me on Twitter at Dickerson underscore Des. My DMs are open, but like don't send me dick pics. I don't want them. And then we're all on Nostr too, so definitely like go there first because it's like way more fun.
Awesome. Thanks again for the time. Hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the last 7 days, you guys sent in 98,231 sats, and that came in from 121 different supporters. Big shout out to everyone who continues to send in sats to the show. We got a few comments in the last week or so. First one is from Andre. This is Andre Neves at Zebedee, who says, awesome discussion on the pod this week in response to episode 98 with Vitor Pamplona. Thank you, Andre, for the sats and the kind words. Solitaire sent in 500 sats and said, moonshot, but hopefully Nostr and Amethyst make it to the masses. I agree. I hope so too. I mean, it's early days. Everything we're doing in Lightning and Nostr is a moonshot to the rest of the world, but there's a lot of traction here. There's a lot of enthusiasm and there's a lot of builders. So I'm optimistic. Every Penny Evan sent 100 sats and said, this was amazing. Thanks for bringing on Vitor. Thank you, Every Penny Evan, for the comment and the sats. Bond boosted 1,337 sats and says, been a happy Amethyst user since pretty much the first APK. Vitor is a machine putting out multiple updates a day. Thank you, Bon. And I didn't know that about the cadence of shipping at Amethyst. So appreciate the comment. The Swiss Road to Crypto sent 200 sats and said, another very interesting episode, Kevin. Thanks. I also really enjoyed the episode with Drew Bansal. I also like when you read listener comments. Keep up the good work, and I will play around with Nostr. This was in response to episode 97 with David King. And the Swiss Road to Crypto, you got your wish. I'm reading out your comment live on the show. Thank you for sending in sats and for the kind words. BTC Rich sent in 650 sats and said, I would have zapped you on Nostr, but Kevin deserves a cut in response to episode 98. I think he was talking to Vitor here when he said that. Appreciate the sats and the comment. Blockchain Boog sent in a few comments this week. First was on episode 7 with Chris Hunter on Galoy. Said, bravo, great interview. In 2023, the only major development I can think of involving Galoy is the synthetic dollar they want to bring to market, but looking forward to things that they bring to the market in the future. Blockchain Boog also sent in sats on episode 8. He's a big fan of John. Great mind, great guest. Michael Machuleff sent in a heart emoji on episode 96 with Drew Bansal. And Siggy47 sent in 500 sats and said, oldie but a goodie on episode 17 with Key and Kusha on Stacker News. Big shout out to everyone who's been contributing to the show. It means a lot to me, and I can't wait to see what you guys send in this week.